The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
And time runs out.
This is the end of the game.
And for the Philadelphia Eagles, the long drought is over. Finally.
The Philadelphia Eagles are the world champions, and the New England Patriots have lost. Sorry to all the New England Patriots fans. Despite the fact of me living in Boston for many years, I am not one, never have been, and never will be. I did not have a horse in that race last night. I'm a New Orleans Saints fan, so it was relatively easy for me not to watch and to stand in solidarity. I'm a huge football fan, but I don't think I've seen a single game this season. I stood in solidarity with Colin Kaepernick and Afro Socialists of America, a subgroup of the Democratic Socialists of America. We gathered together last night for the Power Bowl, Black Power Bowl, and we had a good time. But the Super Bowl was controversial enough where it was for it to reach us by the time I left. I heard of this ad I want you to listen to from Dodge, using the voice of Dr. King to promote their latest Dodge Ram truck.
You want to be important? Wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know the theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace. Soul generated by love.
Dodge Ram truck. All the imagery of the massive grill of the Dodge Ram truck at the end there. And throughout you have images of doctors serving and people in the military serving and daddies kissing their babies' heads. I mean, I know a little bit about that, but it's a wonderful commercial until you realize, well, instantly I realized the problem with it. Dr. King was not a capitalist to be used to sell trucks. That's problem number one. Problem number two is, can we see how, my God, how they whitewash Dr. King? I mean, and whitewash in this sense has absolutely nothing to do with race, everything to do with taking and stripping away the potency, the power of the message from a person and completely using it for promotion and advertising. It is out of control. That's absurd. Someone on Twitter, of course, let Twitter get a hold of it. Someone on Twitter redid the commercial and overlaid the actual speech that Dr. King would want to be remembered by when it comes to consumerism and capitalism.
The presence of this instinct explains why we are so often taken by advertisers. Those gentlemen of massive verbal persuasion. And they have a way of saying things to you that kind of gets you in the bind. In order to be a man of distinction, you must drink this whiskey. In order to make your neighbors envious, you must drive this type of car. In order to be lovely to love, you must wear this kind of lipstick or this kind of perfume. And before you know it, you're just buying that stuff. And I've got to drive this car because it's something about this car that makes my car a little better than my neighbor's car. And I am sad to say that the nation in which we live is the supreme culprit. And I'm going to continue to say it to America.
You can't possibly get any further away from the true message of a person than what we saw last night. Is it a big deal? Yeah. And you know what? It is a big deal because there is something when people co-opt your heroes and they weaponize your heroes, You know, we've seen it done in the political sense for forever. They do it every single year. Conservatives do it every single year. Hell, white liberals do it every single year, and they weaponize it to neuter and neutralize your political movement. I mean, think of it in this context. Colin Kaepernick could not even protest in silence. He cannot protest in silence without being having everyone from fans in the stadium all the way to the president of the United States of America attacking him. Yet it's okay to roll out Dr. King for capitalism, to sell a Dodge Ram truck. I mean, that's number one. I mean, and actually, I don't even really feel like digging into the problem, because I think everyone can see the problem, but I just want you to take note how prevalent the problem is. This is the exact opposite of who Dr. King was and what he stood for. And yet, it's done on a regular basis. Every year we see this. People with the best of intentions, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I do know that this has to come to an end. Stop weaponizing and monopolizing on the memory of Dr. King when he stood against the very thing that you stand for.
If this was oversight, the committee members would want to read the underlying documents. I made a motion to allow them to read the documents. They voted it down. I made a motion to bring the FBI in and ask the FBI these questions. You know, why was this included? Why was that not included? That's what oversight looks like. That's the oversight we've done for 10 years.
You've read the underlying documents.
I have, and they voted that down. They voted against hearing from the FBI. When you do oversight, you haul them in under oath. You say, why was this included? Why wasn't that included? The interest wasn't oversight. The interest was a political hit job on the FBI in the service of the president.
That was the voice of Representative Adam Schiff. He is the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. He was on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, speaking about the infamous memo that finally dropped on Friday. The shoe dropped to a bunch of nothingness. I read the memo firsthand. I didn't wait for anyone to give me an analysis of it. I decided to read it for myself maybe 5 minutes after it came out. And there's nothing there. Nothing. Nothing in the sense that all of the accusations in the memo are a political hit job, exactly like Adam Schiff said. Now, let's start this conversation with something that needs to be stated on the records. From all indications, from previous cases, from previous investigative reporting, there is a problem with FISA warrants and the process through which they are obtained and approved and renewed. Because of the violation it allows for surveillance, the privacy violation of American citizens. And the lack of transparency is one of the problems. So this is not, it has to be said, in this case where it's the FBI and the Department of Justice versus Donald Trump, this is not to say that either side on this is above reproach and needs to be respected, revered, and honored, and more importantly, to suggest that their powers or that they be strengthened. This is not, and I say this because I've seen commentators, I've seen Cenk Uyghur's tweet questioning how Donald Trump could ever challenge the FBI and the police officers and stuff. I've seen quite a few people in the resistance who go one step too far and say that this is this is somehow means that we should respect the FBI more. No, not at all. I think it's only reasonable and expected. It is our job to question every facet of our government, even to question people who are temporarily allies with us against the treasonous president of the United States of America. Now, that being said, there was nothing in the Nunes memo, nothing but politicized talking points that were based on omissions. The entire memo was an omission of all of the other underlying evidence that has been used to obtain a FISA warrant in surveillance of Carter Page, who was an associate of the Trump campaign. And the reason we know that there's plenty of other evidence there is because the memo does slightly suggest that there's, or alludes to other evidence. Number one, members of the House Intelligence Committee, they say that there's an abundance such that there's enough for a secondary memo that's coming from the hands of the Democrats that outlines all of the other evidence that's there. But that memo has been shot down and has not been allowed to enter into the public sphere, like the Republican memo penned by Devin Nunes and his staff. So through omission, they create this exactly what we talked about, right? So shout out to the sources that the New York Times has, because they put this out a few days before the memo came out, letting us know exactly what was going to be in the memo, right? It leaked. And to the extent that we've covered it quite extensively before the actual memo was dropped. And I don't have to go back and change anything because the reporting from the New York Times was 100% accurate in terms of what was going to be in the memo. And if I can give you my summary, it would be that the Republican president of the United States is using the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee to wage a war on the Republican-led Department of Justice, headed up by the Republican-appointed Jeff Sessions, headed up, who has authority over the Republican Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, who has authority over the Republican Bob Mueller, who was doing the investigation into the Republican president of the United States. And they are attacking, all of these Republicans are attacking other Republicans on the basis of a FISA warrant that they claim is has been erroneously renewed by the Republican Rod Rosenstein. And the FISA warrant is looking into the Republican associate of the campaign, Trump campaign, Carter Page. This is the insanity of everything that has been a part of this madness around the memo. More memo madness. And so there's nothing there. But that doesn't stop the president of the United States from pretending as though this validates it vindicates, actually, is his word. This is what he said on Twitter. The president said the 4-page memo released Friday reports the disturbing fact about how the FBI and FISA appear to have been used to influence the 2016 election and its aftermath. The FBI failed to inform FISA court that the Clinton campaign had funded the dossier. And then he went on to say that the FBI, and he actually skips a thought, but he said the FBI, and then ... The next tweet says, this memo totally vindicates quote unquote Trump, speaking of himself in third person in probe. But the Russian witch hunt goes on and on. There was no collusion and there was no obstruction. The word now be used because after 1 year of looking endlessly, finding nothing, collusion is dead. This is an American disgrace. Well, here's the problem, champ. Here's a problem, Mr. President. You actively obstructed justice in firing James Comey. So regardless of whether or not they find anything, I was highly and still am highly skeptical of them being able to find a clear, indictable case of collusion. But we all knew that sometimes it's not the crime, it's the reaction to the crime that people go down for. And so the president, Hope Hicks, the young lady, she's now tied up into it. There's so many different levels of obstruction of justice that seems to have occurred. And this is what Bob Mueller is investigating. But the president went a little bit further. Remember earlier, I just a moment ago, I played Adam Schiff. And this was the president's response to that clip of Adam Schiff. He said on Twitter, quote, "Little Adam Schiff." This sounds like a nursery rhyme. Little Adam Schiff, who is desperate to run for higher office, is one of the biggest liars and leakers in Washington, right up there with Comey, Warner, Bennett, Brennan, and Clapper. Wow, he just attacked everybody. Adam leaves closed, this is him saying again, continuing rather, Adam leaves closed committee hearings to illegally leak confidential information. Must be stopped. Must be stopped. Adam, listen to the last two sentences. Adam Schiff, an elected representative in Congress, ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, the president of the United States says Adam leaves closed committee hearings to illegally leak confidential information must be stopped. This is some dangerous language. This is, to me, this is one step too far after him having already gone too far every day for the last year. Donald Trump has perpetually stepped over the line of what's acceptable in our national discourse. And yet, no one even bothers to bat an eye. No one. We become accustomed to it. We're used to it. And this is going, in my opinion, one step further than he normally goes, without any regard for the safety of Adam Schiff. Adam leaves closed committee hearings to illegally leak confidential information must be stopped. How do you do this and not expect your followers, your insane followers, because everybody has insane followers at some point, to act on it? That's because the president of the United States does not care, because he's a moron. He is a dangerous person. He is a stain on American society, and we've got a lot of stains, ladies and gentlemen. Like this is the next level. And never mind all of the lies in his tweets. We've become accustomed to his lies, his obfuscations. We're accustomed to all of the madness. But now the president, to me, is going one step further and inciting violence. And not that this is going to be headline news, not that people are going to be offended and outraged by this. No, there's not going to be, there will not be millions of clicks around the president's behavior this morning. That's because we become accustomed to it. And this is the new normal. This is the new normal. Whether or not we want it to be, this is what it is. Because you know why? We're post outraged. There's almost no more outrage that we can show with regard to how this president carries himself. I don't think anyone in Washington, D.C. is more despicable, though, than Paul Ryan. Donald Trump is disgusting, but Paul Ryan is despicable and dangerous, and he must be stopped politically. Choosing my words very carefully at this point, right? He must be stopped. He must be stopped politically. He must be put out of office. He can no longer be allowed to be there because he is a dangerous person in terms of the well-being of our social safety nets. He has it out. He wants to destroy everything that was done in the New Deal to help the average working class American. The other day, he had to delete a tweet because his true colors started to shine. His true colors came out and he had to delete it because of how much backlash he faced. Paul Ryan, from his personal account on Saturday, tweeted, "A secretary at a public high school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, says she was pleasantly surprised her pay went up $1.50 a week. She said that will more than cover her Costco membership for the year." And this is what he tweets out in celebration of the massive tax breaks that everyone got. This secretary got a whopping $1.50 covering her Costco membership. Not any bills, nothing substantive that could actually save her life. Her Costco membership, so that she can go there and spend more money and drain more of her living and consume more. So he had to delete that. But you know which one he didn't delete, which is even, I think, is worse. He actually left one up that was worse than that. This is what he said on the 2nd, which was what today's 5th, 4th, 3rd, Friday. He said this: "I have heard time and again that the middle class is getting crumbs, but I'll take it." Now he said it in quotation marks, quoting an article from AP Business News. But this is still standing. "I have heard time and again that the middle class is getting crumbs, but I'll take it." The first response, which I think is great, who's got like 8,000 likes and 722 retweets, which is great, is from someone named Dale Ennis, at Dale Ennis on Twitter, said, quote, "So your official position is that we should be grateful for the crumbs?" Dale, yes, that is his official position. And he is a disgusting, I don't really know how to describe this person, because he has a laser-like focus on hurting the middle class, economically speaking. real physical, material harm done to the well-being, the economic well-being, and the social safety net that sustain the middle class and the working class. And he's proud of it. He is proud of it. This is his dream come true. He sat around in college, he said, and dreamed about how he can enact entitlement reform. Never mind the fact that they aren't entitlements. They're things that we have paid into. These are things that we are owed. This is not just a safety net. This is a safety net that we pay for and create, and he wants to destroy it in the name of tax breaks. And you know why else he does this? It's because he's getting paid to do this. Paul Ryan, according to Huffington Post and to many other outlets, this has been confirmed, fact check true. Paul Ryan collected $500,000 in Koch contributions just days after the House bill passed, the tax bill passed. So this is doing good for him. This is great for him. And then he subsequently, according to Axios, he subsequently took that $500,000 and distributed some of it, $5,000 check for each member in the House GOP campaign. So every Republican in the House got paid. According to the Huffington Post, quote, just days after the House passed its version of the federal tax law slashing corporate tax rates, House Speaker Paul Ryan collected nearly $500,000 in campaign contributions from billionaire energy mogul Charles Koch and his wife, according to a recent campaign donor report. And it gets worse. Not only is he taking money to hurt the average American, He's now turned that focus from tax breaks into enacting his Ayn Rand view of the world. Paul Ryan, according to the Wall Street Journal, Paul Ryan pushes to keep overhaul of safety net programs on GOP agenda. So above all else, it's the 1-2 step. Who was I speaking to? I was doing an interview with a gentleman from I can't think of his name, and I'll get it and mention it tomorrow. But he said that this has always been a 1-2 step dance. The first step is cutting taxes, creating an economic problem, and then a fiscal problem, right? Creating huge deficits from those tax breaks, rewarding their donors, and then turning around and using those as an excuse to gut our safety nets. Paul Ryan pushes to keep overhaul safety net programs on GOP, according to the Wall Street Journal. Quote, House Speaker Paul Ryan, speaking at a GOP policy retreat, called for overhauling government aid programs to be a legislative priority in 2018, though his plan is likely to face difficulties, blah, 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 blah. But they are in charge of the House and the Senate. So chances are, and this is something that the president of the United States is going to sign because the president doesn't care. The president just wants a victory so that he can look better than President Obama. And in the backdrop of all this is the justification, right? The justification is going to be, according to the Washington Post, the U.S. government is set to borrow nearly $1 trillion this year. Quote, here are the exact figures. The U.S. Treasury expects to borrow $955 billion this fiscal year, according to documents released Wednesday. It's the highest amount of borrowing in 6 years, and a big jump from the $519 billion the federal government borrowed last year. That's almost double what the government borrowed in fiscal year 2017. End quote. So this is the justification. They have created a massive problem with the deficit, and now they're going to use that deficit to justify gutting our safety net programs. Because nothing else Paul Ryan wants more than to see you homeless, dying on the street. Because there are no programs to sustain you, no programs for you to get food stamps, to get food assistance. It's not enough for the top 1% to get 82% of the wealth as reported last year. They have to get more. It's never enough for them. Never. And the greed, what is Jeff Bezos worth now? Was it 135 billion or 108 billion? I don't know. It gets a little blurry once you get over 100 billion. That's not enough. It's not enough. So because it's not enough, the bottom line is this: the drive for ever increasing profit margins, by definition, is never enough. And so there's nothing that they're willing to not gut in order to give themselves the next quarter's profit goals. There's nothing. And yes, this is there is a direct line from the actions of Paul Ryan to the wealth that's generated for people like Jeff Bezos. There's a direct line, right? You could either increase profit margins by being an innovator and doing something creative, or you could increase profit margins by lobbying, using millions of dollars to lobby people like Paul Ryan, in turn get billions of dollars of tax breaks, instantly increasing your profit margin. There's a direct line. Paul Ryan and Republicans must be stopped politically, at the polls, out of office, and we have to restore some sanity in our system, or else you're not going to be able to save capitalism from itself, Robert Reich. It's not going to happen. The people are going to have no choice but to rise up because they're starving. They're literally freezing to death. Here in Atlanta, 11 people froze to death just in January. That's because there's no funding being allocated for homeless shelters, or there's been a decrease in the funding for funding in homeless shelters. People are literally dying, and this is the richest period in world history. The rich are doing so great, but it's never enough. And I hate to go biblical on you, but there's a scripture that actually talks about it. Proverbs 27:20. Just as death and destruction are never satisfied, so human desire is never satisfied. Greed. It's never enough. And the problem with Paul Ryan is that not only is he greedy, he has a sadistic desire to hurt us. He gets off. He feels like he's doing the just thing. It's not only sadist. It's actually a twisted worldview of his faith and morality. He thinks the moral thing to do is to cut everything from underneath us and make us fend for ourselves in a system that's uniquely designed and created to perfectly extract all of the wealth and to exploit everything that we have, to exploit us at every angle, every opportunity, every single day. This system is completely designed to extract, to maximize what it can get out of us without giving us anything in return. And Paul Ryan thinks that it is the moral and superior thing and the noble and the godly thing to do to completely strip the safety net away from underneath us and leave us completely exposed, further exposed to the perverse forces of capitalism and never ending greed and never ending need to hit that next quarter's profit margins. I would say that Paul Ryan is one of the most consequential politicians of our lifetime, and he's proud of it. He's proud of the reason he's so consequential is because he is single-handedly leading the charge to dismantle every aspect of our safety net, and he's doing it in his mind as the moral and just thing to do. He is a madman. He is dangerous, and he needs to be stopped politically. He must be put out of office and all relegated to the dregs of our society because of the people, the millions of people that he's hurt in exchange for $500,000 in campaign contributions from the Koch brothers, as well as in exchange of what one estimate gave, which is $19,000 a year in personal income tax savings. That's all the time I have for you today, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Go to patreon.com/the BPD show and become a patron today. See you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.